Hello everyone and welcome to the Ticker.com's news channel on YouTube. On this channel, we review stock markets and discuss financial news, market trends, and economic data from Wall Street to Global Street. So let's dive in. We begin our review of the global economy with key releases in the US, Europe, China, India, and Japan. Global stock market indices were on the back foot after US consumer price inflation rose for the second month in a row in March. Moreover, service sector inflation stayed elevated, significantly above the Fed's 2% target rate. Clearly, it is harder for the Fed to kill the last 1 percentage point of inflation, as inflation has been above 3% for 9 months in a row. To put things in perspective, let's look at the inflation chart over the last 5 years. Large-scale government spending pushed inflation to a 4-decade high in June 2022, but inflation began to ease as the Federal Reserve started raising rates and it dropped to 3% in June 2023. But not much progress has been made over the last 9 months, and prices are still rising faster than the Fed would like. Across the Atlantic, picture is slightly different, and inflation has declined steadily, generally reflecting the easing of energy prices over the last few years. Inflationary forces are weakening significantly in the euro area, but that has also come at the cost of economic growth and record high interest rates. The European Central Bank held its interest rate steady at 4.5% and signaled that the rate-setting committee is ready to lower rates if inflation continues on its downward slide in the coming months. Investors took those statements and projected that the ECB is most likely to cut its interest rate by 25 basis points at least at the end of its next policy meeting in June. While the rich Western economies are battling inflation, China is facing real prospect of deflation. Consumer prices in March rose for the second month in a row, but not by much after falling for 4 months in a row. Prices are falling because Chinese consumers are worried about job security, and the protracted property price slump has also soured the moods. In other economic news, France's trade deficit shrank in February, Germany's trade surplus contracted, and China's stumbling exports drove its trade surplus sharply lower in March. On the inflation front, France and Germany confirmed a steady decline in inflation below 3%, while India's inflation fell below 5% in March. Let us review key events in global bond, currency, and commodity markets last week. The yield on the 10-year U.S. Treasury rebounded as high as 4.6% after consumer price inflation accelerated in March and stayed far above the Fed's 2% target rate. Crude oil hovered near $86 a barrel as the prospect of a wider war in the Middle East stoked fears of global supply disruptions. Natural gas prices in Europe rose to 30 euros per megawatt hour and halted a 2-week slide on rising tensions in the Middle East and worries of Russian attack on natural gas storage facilities in Europe. The euro eased to $1.06 after the European Central Bank held steady on its lending rate and signaled its readiness to lower rates as early as June. The yen weakened to 153.20 against the US dollar as investors projected higher US interest rates, staying longer and keeping a wider rate gap between the two currencies. Let us shift our attention to major stock markets in the US, Europe, and Asia. The S&P 500 index and the Nasdaq Composite extended weekly losses after investors pared back rate cut expectations following the hotter-than-expected consumer price inflation in March. European markets extended losses for the second week in a row after rising tensions in the Middle East and an ongoing war in Ukraine could disrupt energy supplies in the region. The Nikkei 225 stock average halted a 2-week slide, and tech stocks led gainers, tracking gains on Wall Street. China indices declined after weak inflation data raised the prospect of deflation amid a protracted property market slump that showed no signs of easing. Indian market indices extended gains for the 4th week in a row ahead of the start of the earnings season amid favorable economic conditions. Let us shift our attention to merger deals, market movers, and earnings update from leading companies last week. JP Morgan fell 4% despite the banking giant reporting stronger quarterly results. Company's net interest income guidance fell short of investor expectations. Wells Fargo reported strong quarterly results despite the net interest income declining 8% in the quarter after consumers shifted to higher-yielding financial products. Citigroup said profits in its latest quarter declined 27%, while it continued to restructure and sell off its international businesses. BlackRock, the financial services company, said first quarter revenue rose 11%, net income soared 36%, and assets under management advanced 15% to $10.4 trillion. Vertex Pharmaceuticals agreed to acquire Alpine Immune Sciences for $4.9 billion in cash, or about $65 per share. Publicis Groupe, the French advertising company, reported that organic sales in the first quarter increased by 4.9%, driven by strong performance in all regions. Société Générale, the French lender, agreed to sell its equipment leasing and financing business for 1.1 billion euros. Microsoft's online gaming unit Blizzard revived the previously available distribution partnership with China-based NetEase, including Overwatch and World of Warcraft. Barry Callebaut, the Swiss chocolate maker, reported higher first-half sales despite a surge in cocoa bean prices. Tesco plc, the UK-based grocery chain, posted 11% increase in profit in its latest financial year, and the supermarket chain operator estimated an increase in profit in the current year. Norfolk Southern, the railroad company in the U.S., struck a class action settlement of $600 million linked to a train derailment causing a toxic chemical spillover in February of 2023. In the week ahead, U.S. investors are looking forward to the release of the March retail sales data and housing market updates, including existing home sales, building permits, and housing starts. Earnings season picks up pace with a flood of earnings from major financial services companies, including Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, Blackstone, and Charles Schwab. United Health, Netflix, J&J, Procter & Gamble are scheduled to release their quarterly results next week as well. In the euro area, investors are awaiting the release of international trade balance, industrial production, and inflation data. In the UK, investors are looking forward to the release of jobless rate, retail sales, and inflation rate to provide insights into the broader set of economic activities. In Asia, China's GDP data will take the center stage, followed by release of retail sales, house prices, and jobless rate. In Japan, investors are looking ahead to the release of international trade balance and inflation rate in March and its impact on the embattled yen. You can review daily U.S. and global financial market news, stock movers, earnings releases, SEC filings, and economic updates on ticker.com and 123jump.com. You can find the latest financial books on Rodera.com, keep up with financial industry events on eventsinamerica.com, review ETF and mutual fund performance and in-depth profiles on tickerfunds.com, and review market updates and stock movers in India on niveshak.in. That is all for today, and we will see you